In this video, we're going to start going over some word problems. So at the top there, you can see our 5-step problem solving plan. Anytime you have a word problem, you're going to go through these 5 steps. You have to read the problem carefully. I recommend reading it twice, often actually. Identify any variables that you're going to have. Write any equations that you need, possibly inequalities if that's the situation. Then solve that equation or inequality that you wrote, or the system if you wrote a system. And then check your answer for reasonableness. That 5th step is one that students often forget to do. They just blindly accept whatever they found, don't think through if the answer actually makes any sense. So we're going to jump in, just starting on number 11. If 8 pens and 7 pencils cost $3.37, while 5 pens and 11 pencils cost $3.10, how much does each pen and each pencil cost? That part right there is telling you exactly what your variables need to be. I'm a boring individual, so I'm going to use the letters X and Y as my variables. You can use whatever letter you want to. It really does not matter. But you have to make sure that you're specific with what you're saying that variable is. So I'm defining my variable. I'm identifying my variable in step 2. How much does each pen and each pencil cost? So I'm going to say X is the cost of a pen, and Y is going to be the cost of one pencil. Okay, the thing that we're looking for is the cost. It's the unknown thing. That's why that is our variable. Now I have to write my equation. So from this first part of the sentence, I have 8 pens. 8 times the cost of a pen is going to be whatever that cost is going to be. I also have 7 pencils. So I'm going to have plus 7 times the cost of my pencil, which is Y. That equals $3.37. And then basically the exact same setup down below. 5x plus 11y equals $3.10. So now I have to go about solving this. Technically speaking, I could find a graph and make a graph of this, but just looking at the numbers, I know that that's not going to be a fun thing. So I'm going to solve this algebraically. I'm either going to solve it by substitution or elimination. Both of those methods look a little bit messy, but I'm going to choose to do elimination, which is linear combinations. I'm going to multiply this top equation by 5 and this bottom equation by -8. Okay, what that's going to give me is a 40x plus 35y equals, when I take 3.37 times 5, I get 16.85. That's my top equation. My bottom equation, I multiplied by -8 specifically to give myself a -40x. When I do my -8 times 3.10, I'm going to get 24.80, because we're talking money here. I picked that one to eliminate x because I found that to be the fastest and easiest with the smallest numbers. If I wanted to eliminate y, I could, but I'm going to end up getting y's and x. Everything's just going to be larger. I don't want it to multiply by 11s if I don't have to. So when I add this stuff up, I'm going to get 35 minus 88 for my coefficient of y, which is -53, and then 1685 minus, there should be a minus there. I didn't write that, sorry. Minus 24.8 is -7.95. Divide both of these by -53. And I'm going to get that y is 15 cents. Okay. That's going to be the cost of my one pencil. So I got to make sure that I remember and refer back to my variables so I don't get the right numbers but put it wrong in my answer. Okay. So now that I know that, I can plug that into either one of my original 2 equations to find x. I'm going to plug it into the green equation. My reasoning here is multiplying by 11 is, I mean, it's not the simplest thing in the world, but it's pretty simple because it's multiplying by 10 and then just getting one more. And then I know in the solving process, I'm going to divide by 5. Dividing by 5 is usually easier than dividing by 8. Okay, so when I take my 11 times 0.15, I'm going to get myself 1.65. When I subtract that from 3.1, I'm going to get 5x. That was an ugly 5. 5x is going to be equal to 1.45. Divide both sides by 5 to get 29 cents. So that's the cost of a pen. So my answer would be 1 pen costs 29 cents, and 1 pencil costs 15 cents. I've boxed that as my answer, but I should still do step 5. I check my answer for reasonableness. The obvious thing you can do is plug it into your equations and make sure that it works, but sometimes reasonableness just isn't as in-depth as redoing the math. So looking at the equations that I have, 8x plus 7y equals $3.37. 5x plus 11y equals $3.10. What I can see from that is that the pens should cost more than the pencils, right? If I had more x's, I had a much higher cost. If I had more y's, my cost didn't go up, right? So I need to have a higher cost for my pen, which if you know anything about pens and pencils, you should know that a pen costs more than a pencil anyway. I get that in my answer, so my answer is reasonable. Okay, I didn't check the numbers in the sense of plugging them in to check for reasonableness in this situation. Sometimes you can get away with that, just that. Have a great day, everybody.